everybody, welcome to today's video. So today's video is about the very last principle of the book, the Kybalion, the principle of gender. If you want to check out the other principles we've talked about thus far, I will have the links down below for you, so go ahead and check out those videos. I hope you guys enjoy this final exploration of the Kybalion. Please like this video and leave a comment below about anything that stood out to you about this final law. Just as a brief recap, the Kybalion is pretty much a spiritual text giving this theory about how reality works, what is governing reality, and these principles that operate within our reality. And when we know these principles, we can use them to help us in our lives or just evolve our souls. So guys, this is a brief definition of how the Kybalion starts off its talk about gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So as we begin to discuss this, I want you to broaden your view on the topic of gender. Because when the Kybalion is speaking of gender, it is not speaking of it in this purely physical way. It is speaking of it in a much broader conceptual way. The Kybalion looks at gender as a concept of creation. And spiritually, it can be viewed as a union of polarities. Masculine and feminine not being two completely different things, but being two poles of the same thing, just two different poles of the same thing. So the masculine, it directs an energy towards the feminine. The feminine then creates from that energy. We're going to break this down more. But first, we want to acknowledge that everything is carrying both energies. That's kind of a synopsis here. Everything has both. So part of what spiritual evolution is about is acknowledging both of these energies and not feeding into one while neglecting the other. Now, there is a lot of discourse already. It's all over YouTube about masculine and feminine energies, how to be in your feminine versus how to be in your masculine. And as a man, you gotta be in the masculine. And as a woman, you should be in your feminine. I don't even really feel like I need to touch on that too much in this video. I don't really feel called to touch on that because there already is so much discourse on it. And that's a whole other video entirely. However, really what the Kybalion is saying is gender is an aspect. It's really just creation. It's a way of creating. It's a broader conceptual topic. The book, however, goes into this concept of mental gender or the dual mind. And that's really what I want to focus in on today because I feel like it's the most important thing the book talks about. And it's going to be what is most relevant to you and your life. This dual mind is a form of mental gender. So how do the masculine and feminine occur within our mind? So in the book, they talk, the masculine and feminine in the mind is the I and the me of the mind. But let's break that down a little bit farther. So the me could be considered to be like your personality, your persona, right? Your likes, your dislikes, your feelings, your preferences, habits, characteristic, the self that's known to you and the self that is known to others. That can be considered your me. And this self is very much of the body. However, we know from reading the book and just from our own life experiences, right, these feelings that are present within the me are subject to change. So when I talk, this self that's known to us and others, but it's very much of the body. The book goes on to say, however, Some cannot conceive of a self independent of the body. Their mind seems to them to be practically a something belonging to their body, which in many cases it is indeed. So this is our starting point. This self-present, it's very physical. As we begin to evolve and we rise in our consciousness, our idea of what self is can begin to change. We disentangle the me from the body. We start to see, however, the me as the mind, so our thoughts and our feelings. However, we know these things are very fleeting. They do not stay the same, so we can't necessarily identify something permanent, such as who we genuinely are, with those things. So we rise again. We set these mental states aside. They say in the book, we set the mental states aside as we evolve. Once all this is set aside, once the physical is set aside and the mental is set aside, then we can truly see the dual mind, the I and the me, the true I and the me. In this setting aside, what does me become? So they say, the me, something mental in which thoughts, ideas, emotions, feelings, and other mental states may be produced. Its powers are of creation and generation, aka this true me within your mind is your feminine aspect. It is receiving energy from something, either its I companion or else some other I. So this I, this consciousness of an ability to project an energy from the I to the me, willing creation to begin, the will to create. The masculine is the I within your own mind. Your will is your I. I say your will is the I. So what is your will? Well, your will to create something, your will for a better life, the will to change. So I want to touch on this as well. When I'm talking about the masculine and feminine of your mind, I don't necessarily mean physically your mind, and I don't believe that's what the book is talking about either. Who you are, what you are, is composed of this masculine and feminine energy, whatever that is, right? Whether that's soul, whether that is in another living mind. In the book, they call the all the infinite living mind. So as above, so below. Are we just another form of that? I don't really know. But when I am talking about mind, I'm meaning it in a broader conceptual way, just like how they're talking about gender. Just bringing it back to the all. So the all is what the Kybalion kind of coins as this creator. You could look at it like God or source. They talk that in the first law, the law of mentalism, that this reality is a mental projection of the all. We are but a thought in the mind of the all. And then we see the principle of correspondence, as above, so below. So it wills to create this reality. We see that in our own minds, this masculine and feminine, as above, so below. Your will then fuels your thoughts, which are feminine, which then create in turn. This is why the book talks like we are Hamlet and the all is Shakespeare. We do the same thing. As above, so below. Within our mind, our will provides energy for our thoughts to create, and then we create the reality around us. Just like the all wills to create, and then we live in this reality that it is thought up of. And this interesting parallel within Christianity even of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit can almost be a representative of this aspect of the dual mind. The Father being the masculine, the feminine being the Holy Spirit, and the Son is the creation between the two of them. And in our own way, we also have that. The Father is our masculine will. The Holy Spirit is within us, the feminine. Together, the Son is our creation. What happens in our lives from that union of the masculine and feminine within our own mind. But here is the most important part of what I am talking about. Yet without the active aid of the will of the masculine principle, the feminine principle is apt to rest content with generating mental images which are the result of impressions received from outside, instead of producing original mental creations. The majority of people really employ the masculine principle but little and are content to live according to the thoughts and ideas instilled into the me from the eye of other minds. So ideally, your masculine and your feminine principle within your mind, so your will and your thoughts, would be in coherence with each other. They'd be harmonious, right? But what they're saying is, when you are not strengthening your will, your mind, that feminine aspect of your mind, receives the will, the masculine principle of others around you, either in your life, on a societal scale, on every single scale. Which is why it is very important to have these two aspects of your mind working in harmony with each other, and to strengthen the will within your mind. Because the I, the will, the being, affects what you become. This feminine receiving impressions. If you are not the one giving it impressions, because it's your life. So nobody can tell you what you need to create but yourself. And it's really scary to think about really how we do live our lives and what we do believe, and how much of that truly is us or has been instilled in us by somebody else. Why they say, but unfortunately the masculine principle in the average person is too lazy to act. The display of willpower is too slight, and the consequence is that such persons are ruled almost entirely by the minds and wills of other people, whom they allow to do their thinking and willing for them. Something like hypnotism, right? How does hypnotism work? Well, the will of another being received by the feminine aspect within someone else's mind. Or even a concept like the law of attraction, like your will, then projected onto your feminine aspect of your mind, which then begins to generate and create mental images from that will, which then create out in physical reality. This also explains why some people rise to power and have so much control over the masses. The will of their own mind is projected and then taken in by the feminine aspects of a bunch of people. And then people begin thinking and creating on larger and larger scales from one person or a group of people who are very organized in projecting their will, going off this intaking of the will of others. I have an interesting quote from Conversations with God, which is another book I'm going to dive into on this channel. If there were such a thing as sin, this would be it. To allow yourself to become what you are because of the experience of others. This is the sin you have committed. When you accept another's will and you create from that, you are working out of alignment with your natural path for evolution. That is their path and their will that their mind creates from. So it's very important that you create from your will, not from the will of another. And you have to be very mindful when you do live your life. What are you creating from when you live according to the will of another mind or many other minds? This is sin. This is what leads to so much unhappiness in the world. We are allowing our minds to create from someone else's will, not our own. We must, absolutely must, learn to strengthen our will so we are not run by the will of others, either knowingly or, the scariest part, unknowingly. When you don't even know that it's not your will, but you are enacting it anyway. What does that kind of remind you of? Maybe like mass media, perhaps? And if you are going to believe something someone else tells you and start creating from that, you should be careful what you choose to believe. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video all the way till the end. I really hope you enjoyed it and you gained something from it. I really hope you enjoyed the Kybalion series as a whole, and I do recommend that you read the book in its entirety. So thank you again for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you for being here.